Welcome to the Arizona Construction and Renovations Employee and Staff Training Program. These tutorials are meant to enhance your knowledge of our internal processes and are not to be shared with others outside of the company.
All right, hello and welcome to the role overview and PSA training for the project coordinator role. Today, I'll be going over your role, an overview of your responsibilities, your direct interactions with PSA, as well as the items you receive from other roles and what other roles will expect from you. I will also be covering the teams you collaborate with, how to measure your success within the company, and where to go for help should you need it. Let's get started. The purpose of your role is to handle all projects during the origination phase, from lead intake all the way to authorization to proceed. The primary focus of your role is going to be maintaining estimator schedules and communication with clients, insurance companies, and third-party administrators or TPAs. The major players that you'll be interacting with internally are the owners, estimators, and accounts receivable. And externally, you'll be communicating with clients, insurance companies, and those TPAs. Your role from beginning to end is going to start at the intake of a job, maintained throughout using client communication, and also maintaining the insurer and TPA guidelines are met. You will be assigning estimators and scheduling them to specific jobs based on their workload and skill set. And you will be dispatching mitigation crews and coordinating them along with the mitigation manager. And you will also be maintaining the accuracy of file uploads, not including estimates provided by estimators, but all of the forms and interactions with TPAs, carriers, and clients. The things you can expect to receive from your previous role, the previous role before you, is almost nothing. Sometimes for core work, ownership will create calendar invites where you will be forced to, you'll be asked to create a calendar invite based on that. But for the most part, the project coordinator is the first role to touch a job. Deliverable to the next role. Estimators will be expecting accurate schedules and scopes in Outlook. It needs to have the contact that they're going to be interacting with. The invite should also include a brief description of the scope, any contact information required, gate codes, important information to make sure the estimator can arrive on site with no delays that was caused by anything internal. You will also be delivering client-provided documents, anything the client provides to us in terms of plans or material suggestions, things that they're looking at. All of that gets uploaded into PSA and passed on to the estimator for them to then pass on to the project manager if necessary. You will also be responsible for linking jobs in XA and Symbility. Your role, the role of project coordinator, eventually will have the ability to link the jobs. Currently, that runs through me, and I need to be contacted in order to get those jobs linked. But the role project coordinator eventually will have access to link those themselves. Project coordinator is also responsible for maintaining records in the TPA portal and PSA. So that is a deliverable to the next role because accuracy of information is key. If the information you're passing on to the next role is not accurate, you can't expect them to continue working on that job efficiently. So maintenance of the records is your responsibility as project coordinator. The key transition points for your role: for anything non-mitigation, the estimator's inspection date takes you from being the major point of contact to making that into the estimator. Up until the estimator meets with the client, you are the major point of contact. You're the one maintaining communication. And afterwards, you can also expect to receive calls, although the estimator should be fielding most questions from the client at that point. For mitigation, arrival on site makes the mitigation manager the POC with the client. Again, you can expect to receive phone calls, in case they're not happy with the way things are handled, or in case the client just does, loses their card, or they remember your number and they call you first. But for the most part, pushing each client off to their respective role that's now responsible for maintaining themselves as the point of contact is best practice. Estimator approval prompts AR to send out a contract and to invoice them. And an ATP fully moves the job to production, which then becomes the responsibility of the operations manager. I had mentioned before your role from beginning to end, it ends at the ATP. And so ATP takes it out of your hands, moves it off to the operations manager, and the accurate maintenance of records makes that transition very easy. Moving into PSA, your daily and weekly tasks. Weekly, the milestones and notes for TPAs that are in origination are the responsibility of the project coordinator. So for all TPA jobs, you'll be expected to put in a note. If it's contractor connection, you'll be going to job track. For all the other TPAs, if they have a unique portal, you'll be maintaining notes in there weekly at a minimum. Also, weekly follow up with estimators to determine their jobs, their workload, and the task priority. You should be meeting with estimators weekly to determine, what their workload is, how many jobs that they have, how difficult those jobs are. You could have 7 jobs and they're all MITs, TARPs, very simple, versus a single, $1 million job. That could take more attention than 7 individual MITs, regardless of the actual amount of estimates being produced. So it's really important that you keep your finger on the pulse with your estimators and make sure that you understand their workload so that you can prioritize new jobs to who they should go to, also based on skill set. Certain estimators are better at writing for core and should be prioritized for all core work. Others work hand in hand with insurance companies daily, so we should give them as many TPA jobs as they can handle. So get to know your estimators and provide them jobs appropriately. Also daily, you'll be checking in with outstanding and unresponsive jobs, any jobs we haven't been able to schedule an inspection with, or that we've provided an estimate and they are no longer responsive. Daily, you'll be checking into those until we've decided that they are no longer worth pursuing. Some people are just looking for a free estimate. We provide that to them. And unfortunately, they no longer follow up with us, but we will continue following up with them until we decide that it's no longer worth it. As far as PSA, the primary screens that you'll be working inside of, that's going to be mainly the create on the jobs screen here, which you can access by clicking on proven jobs logo or the drop down here and clicking jobs. Either way, this create button, which is what there will be a separate video for. This is intake. This is how we bring in new jobs. This is how we put in new customers, assign estimators or MIT techs for the appropriate job. This is how we decide job types and subtypes, which dictate the workflow that the job follows, as well as specific instructions to those job subtypes. So make sure you are as accurate as possible when entering those in. But again, there will be a video for the create. That is simply a screen that you'll be using often, that create here on the jobs tab. Now, inside of an actual job, you will be using the tabs up here you see: info, dates, relationships, notes, attachments, and custom fields. Outside of this, besides the TPA portals, there are not many screens that you'll be utilizing. XA for anything coming through Verisk, contractor connection, Alacrity. A lot of our TPAs use XA, and Symbility will be useful for the other TPAs. But besides that, you'll be spending a lot of time inside of PSA. Now, the info tab here houses all that information that you entered on that initial intake, as well as some additional contact information and an alternative status, which is our way of keeping track of where the job is. So this is just a general information tab. Dates house all the dates, both the custom ones that we've created to track things internally and the ones that TPAs use to track the actual progress of the job. Anything outside of a parentheses, so these up here, are provided by TPAs. So those are native to the system, and affecting these dates on a job that is linked to a job in exact analysis or in Symbility will affect those dates there. If this job were linked and I put in an inspected date, XA's job would also add an inspected date here. Same thing for Symbility. So those dates are tied together. Now, as far as the custom ones, they're still important, even though they're created within the company, because they're very important dates. They show when certain key transition points take place. This ATP, for example, would take it from origination to production. Very important date. PCN, meaning the job is entirely completed, also a very important date. You can expect these dates to be restructured in the future with the parentheses intermixed, intermingled between all the other ones, to make it chronologically logical, to make sure that everything happens in order and it makes sense. Um, just keep an eye out for those parentheses. If there are no parentheses and the job is linked, these dates affect real dates in our portals. And these are meaningless outside of PSA, but very meaningful to our company in terms of maintaining that accurate information. Okay. Um, Moving on to the relationships tab. Here's where we can add employees to the job. You'll be adding estimators from that intake screen, but in case you need to add somebody else, you can click on the relationships tab, go here to employees, and you can add other people in here. If there is a second estimator needed, obviously you can't click here because this will delete Brian. So you would have the ability to select somebody who is an estimator, Adrian, for example. It shows that he's an estimator, project coordinator, and salesperson, but we just want him in here as an estimator. And I can click the add button, giving us a second estimator on this job. Again, clicking in here, changing the name would overwrite Adrian, so we can just keep adding estimators as needed using this function at the top. And you can remove people as well, just like that. Next, we've got the Notes tab, which is going to house all of the notes for the job for its entirety. You can expect to have quite a few notes on here, so this button down here can be used to increase the amount of notes that you can see on a single page. You can create, filter, and clear filters. Make notes public, which will publish them to the portal if there is a linked job. If this job were linked, it would show an additional tab after DocuSketch here that says either Exactware or Symbility. That'll tell us that it is linked. There's also a link to the portal from that tab. But all of the notes here, making a note public will publish it to the TPA. So if this were linked to Exactware and I created a note and made it public, or checked this box and made it public, it would publish it to XA immediately. We also have the ability to print the notes page, sort through them. You can use must-see notes, which forces people to visit the page and view the note before accessing the info. For example, if this must-see notes was checked and there was a must-see note in here, when I navigate to the job, instead of taking me to the info screen by default, it would take me directly to the notes and it would highlight one of them as the must-see note, drawing attention to it for things like somebody's wife who's handling a insurance claim currently because their husband is overseas, or in some instances dealt with deceased members, and so their family members are handling the claim. So instead of calling and asking for somebody who is no longer with us, the must-see note would draw our attention to that they have passed, and we can communicate effectively without embarrassing ourselves or them. So the must-see notes are very important for certain circumstances and something you should definitely learn how to use. Moving on to the attachments tab, here are where all of the files for a job are stored. We've got plans and permits, photos, which will be labeled construction photos. That needs to be updated on all the jobs, so you can expect to see that. We've also got inactive files, which is an archive for all the files we no longer need. If we have a new updated estimate, there's no need to hang on to the old one. If they've already signed a contract for the new one, can move it to inactive files to maintain the record, but make sure that people know that it is an inactive file. So anything no longer important for exactly what's happening with the job, but something we want to keep and maintain a record of, can go in inactive files. Subbids, signed forms, takeoff scopes and photo reports generated by the estimator, reports. There's a number of folders in here, and that will potentially grow as well in the future. So just get used to navigating through here. If you need to change the name of something, you can click on the name of it here, the name of the folder. You can, based on your roles and permissions, you can delete, download, upload. I recommend, if you're uploading through the desktop, that you use Windows File Explorer to change the name of documents first. If you were to upload them and try changing the name of the photos inside of PSA, it would be extremely tedious to do that. So instead, you can take all the photos, name them the same thing during, after, before, whatever it is, and upload them all at once instead of renaming them after upload. Beyond that, the next field that you'll be, or the next tab that you'll be using is the custom fields here. So we've got three custom link fields. We've got a permit link, which can be used to link directly to a permit, City of Tucson, or other entities where we actually maintain permits, where we request them, submit for them, and then eventually receive them. The link can be maintained here simply by clicking it, pasting the link, and hitting the checkbox. It makes it so that I can, or any user can click on it and go directly to whatever URL is put in there. Also, you can see here original estimator and original PM. In order to maintain clear records and to prevent additional stress to our estimators, we don't want them to see jobs that they are no longer responsible for having any input on. So once a job is approved, we don't want an estimator to see those jobs on their main job tab. As an administrator, I can see every job, but if I was to remove that role and just be an estimator, I should only see jobs that I am attached to, which I can filter just by putting my name in here. So I've got 22 jobs. These are the only jobs I really want to see. So if I'm no longer necessary because a job is not sold or it's in production or it's paid, it's already done, and I shouldn't be attached to these jobs, we can remove my ability to see that job as a standard estimator by removing my relationship to the job as an estimator by removing this. But if I do that, we no longer have a record, an easy record of who the original estimator was for this job. So before removing me as an estimator on a job I no longer need to see, a project coordinator will go into the custom fields, select the estimator as the original estimator so we can maintain a record of who estimated this job initially, while also keeping, don't forget to save, while also keeping the job list screen clearer for me as an estimator. So removing myself, I now have 21 jobs. I don't see that unnecessary job anymore. But if we were to navigate back to that record for a change order, a supplement, a question about the job, we know I am the original estimator without having to go through some kind of audit log or looking it up in some other way. Nice and clean. Info, dates, relationships, notes, attachments, and custom fields. Those are the screens that you live on inside of PSA. The key data that you collect is going to be client contact information as well as location information. As much as we want to trust the portals, we can't necessarily trust the phone number or the address from whatever adjuster put that information in. So we should always verify. When we get a new assignment from Exact Analysis, or we get a new assignment from one of our TPAs, one of our portals, the first thing we should do is reach out to them, try to schedule an appointment. At which time you are also verifying the contact information, emails, phone numbers, address. Sometimes we will have an address for a customer and a risk location. The risk location, if you understand the industry, obviously means that that is where the actual loss happened. Sometimes those addresses get mixed up, so it is up to you, last line of defense, making sure that this address that we're going to go visit for our site visit is accurate in the actual place that needs to be inspected. We don't need to drive an extra 30 minutes because of a mistake that could have been cleared up in a couple seconds on a phone call. So maintain that accurate information. Next, site access, gate codes, hide a key, lockbox codes, anything that would allow the estimator access they can't read estimators can't read your mind as a PC. We don't have any information except what's provided in the invite. So not only should that information for site access gate codes go into PSA so that we can access that in the future. And you can see here, there's actually a contact info field for gate codes, right? You can add that in, whatever number it is. You can also add lockbox codes, whatever. So put that into the invite that you're sending in the calendar and into PSA. Next, any important notes, anything that you might, we talked about before, the deceased homeowners or family members, things like that. Very important notes you can put in there. You can mark them as must see. It will force that attention to be drawn. You can also edit the loss description for anything that's not a TPA job, because those loss descriptions are maintained by the TPA in this instance. But for core work, you can change the loss description and draw attention here in red letters at the top of the info tab. Next we have TPA plus insure guidelines and rules. That is very important data for a project coordinator to understand. You are the one coordinating all projects for all estimators. We're maintaining the records for our own. We are maintaining communication with clients as best we can, producing estimates, producing change orders, discussing the job with the homeowner in general. But when it comes to the actual guidelines of how we have to maintain these jobs, that is up to you ultimately to maintain as the project coordinator. You'll need to understand how long we have after receipt of a job to contact the client, and where that needs to get marked in the different portals, how long after contact we need to actually inspect, and then from inspection to estimation, estimation to approval times, and then approval of that estimate to job start. So that flow is going to depend on your ability to communicate with homeowners, as well as your ability to keep estimators moving towards that goal of getting an approval and moving the job into production. So communicate with your estimators, meet with them constantly, and push them to produce the estimates for the ones that we can benefit the most from. If a job has been delayed significantly and we're going to ask for an exception on it, but we have the ability to get a 4 in the POM score for another estimate, maybe make an executive decision, have them focus on the one where we can actually score on, and then immediately follow up with the next one that we've got an exception rule on. So understand those guidelines and how you can really manipulate different things to get us better scores. It's really just about understanding the rules. So arm yourself with that information for the different TPAs and insurance companies we deal with. Next, key data is the job types that we work with. So we've got core projects, which is anything not related to TPA and not a mitigation job. So core projects, also not PCAs. So I guess I shouldn't say anything. But for the most part, if it is not insurance related, it is not coming from a TPA, it's going to be a core project. The only other circumstances for that is a self-referral mitigation. You can see mitigation any means that any kind of mitigation runs through this workflow, because the timeline is exactly the same, regardless of if it comes from an insurance or it comes from a homeowner just needing help and calling us directly. We should treat it exactly the same. So if it's mitigation, that is trump card, that trumps everything. If it's mitigation, it goes under MIT. If it is TPA, so a recon, consumer services, or it comes to us from a TPA and it's not a mitigation job, then it will go under TPA non-MIT. The PCA is core work, but it's specific core work that is a pre-construction agreement, meaning there's some kind of permit or design needed beforehand. We are not going to provide them an estimate of the reconstruction services because we don't yet know exactly what those services will entail. We need to pull permits, we need to do certain things, and there's a cost associated with that. So this pre-construction is for the preliminary estimate to determine costs before we even figure out what materials and labor is going to cost to do the job. So PCA is permits, design, anything before we're actually estimating for core work. We have the core projects, which you can see the subtypes of: addition, ground up, pre-construction only, which that'll get removed because now we have the PCA job type, reconstruction, renovation, so remodels, self-refer insurance, uh, site work, and tenant improvement. If we go through mitigation, you can see here that there is abatement, asbestos and lead testing, bio, board up and tarp, fire, smoke, mold, tree debris removal, and water. Under PCA, we've got design and other. TPA, we have consumer services, which is when a homeowner needs contractor services and they don't trust just going out and finding their own, they can reach out to their insurance company and they can request a vetted contractor within the network. Some homeowners know that there is a short list of contractors that work on insurance work, and so they trust those people because the insurance company trusts them. So a little bit more trustworthiness with reaching out to a company like ours in order to do uh, remodel services. So it's core work, but it's handled through the TPA, so we consider it TPA because they do maintain those. They do inspect our estimates. They maintain a looser timeline, obviously not the same as reconstruction, but they do maintain a timeline. So consumer services. There's also reconstruction, which is the majority of TPA. Majority of TPA, you're going to go MIT, or you're going to go TPA non-MIT. Reconstruction, because that's the majority of what we use that for. Turn projects, very simple. Most likely you will not touch these very often, or you will receive a message from Jeffrey letting you know that we have a new turn. It needs to be added to the system. There's really not a lot that goes on with that. We have these three: Aspen, First Key, MCH. If it's other than that, if it's another company, these are the actual property management companies we work with that hire us to quickly work on their turns. We can add more to this list or just use the other category for now. If you see more than one from the same company, let's add it to the list. Otherwise, we'll just use other. Also, warranty. Warranty is separate from everything else because we handle warranty jobs totally separate from everything else. There's no maintained records of, an estimated cost and then making margins. It's all a loss. So if we're doing a warranty, it needs to be labeled under warranty and used with that workflow. So those are all the job types and subtypes that we work with. The Z shop unbillable is the default, can't be removed. Don't ever use it. The SLA metrics is another thing that we need to maintain. That is simply just reiterating the TPA guidelines, the insurance guidelines. We have a service level agreement, SLA. That's what that stands for. The deliverable times for all of our documents, estimates, inspections, dates, everything that we owe to them has a deadline. If we miss that deadline, our service level agreement fails and we receive a service level failure or an SLF. Bad news, don't want those. Learn and understand your TPA and insurance guidelines and don't miss your deadlines. The notifications coming out of PSA are going to be reminders for an Outlook calendar invite setup. For mitigation, you will also receive a notification letting you know to assign a MIT tech and an estimator. For MIT as well, when the inspection is complete, it's going to remind you to request a work authorization, photos, and scope from the techs, and then also remind you to upload those. So those are all the notifications you'll receive from PSA. They'll go to your Outlook and they will be labeled as notifications at AZ Construction. So you'll see those, it'll be a PSA notification coming out of the workflow, and that's just based on timers. The workflow tab can be confusing for ones that have workflows applied to them, but every job is going to have a workflow, and that just determines the due date of every task and notifies people when the next task comes up. It's progressed mainly by filling in dates. When the workflow is active, we receive a job, and then we contact them. When you put in that contacted status, it's going to move the workflow to the next step, and on and on and on. As we fill in what is required of us, the alternative status moves forward, informing us that our job is progressing. We can track that through all the different stages. You can read through those. And then the workflow also progresses. And with that workflow come automatic notifications. So when you receive notifications from PSA, that's what they'll look like. They'll give you a certain instruction. There will be bold letters letting you know this is what you need to do. When you do this thing, the job progresses. Very cut and dry. Moving on next, we'll go into your deliverables. So this is everything that you need to deliver to the next role or to roles that you're working parallel with, everything that you owe to them. So the schedule and scopes and outlook to an estimator need to be accurate. Um, Also, the client provided documents need to be uploaded. Anything that we need to know about, any document that the client finds important should be uploaded so that the estimator can at least review it, even if it seems meaningless. Um, Something we might not use, just get it in there so that when the estimator has the conversation with the homeowner, yes, they did review that document. Form uploads also the responsibility of the project coordinator. We can't trust anybody else really to upload those files, so maintain those records. Despite who got the form signed or whose computer it's sitting on, get the documents, get them uploaded. Next, in XA, linking of jobs is something that is the responsibility of the project coordinator. So learning how to do that under the integration tab for Exactware and Symbility here. These come through under integration Exactware. I can see here that I have a real example, Master Sergeant Rodney Lavelle. So I can import that in here. This is attaching an XA assignment to the job in PSA, linking those two. So let's see if Lavelle only has one job here. He's got two. So this is a water. We've got a mitigation and a recon. So that's going to require a little more research. So let's go ahead and look at what that looks like here. Master Sergeant Rodney Lavelle. I'm going to look up that last name. You see there's multiple here. I'm going to click on one. And what I'm looking at here is this code up here. 06PDJP8. That is not this Exactware ID, so I'm not linking this job. Close. Next one. 06PF03X. Not this job. Close. I guess that makes sense. This one in February. 06QTHF1. All right. So what job is this? This is the roof. This is the roof job, rain and windstorm, water bubble in the master bedroom ceiling, possible roof damage. General contractor / reconstruction. This is our trade. It's not cut and dry. It's not clean. It's not easy to learn some of these. So when you're really trying to figure out what this job is, because we're trying to link it, right? We want to make sure we get the right one. And if we've got two jobs and we link this to the MIT, it's not going to be the right job. This is for reconstruction services. So I went from details, which is the default screen in exact analysis, to client / policy. And in here, I learned the trade is for reconstruction. If the trade said water mitigation, whatever. You read through these, you can read through the type of loss, you can read the description. Sometimes they'll literally just say this is a mitigation job. So we know that this recon, 2026, yep, 185th job, recon, Laval, Wintergreen Drive, 1984. I verified the risk location against the job, and I've checked this box, replace loss description. I didn't say that earlier, but I checked this box because whatever the loss description is here, let's match it in ours, make them exactly accurate. And it defaults to attach to existing. In the future, maybe we'll have jobs auto create based on TPA receipt of an assignment, but that's not the case now. So check all the boxes, attach it to an existing job, verify that your exact ID matches what you're trying to link, import, save. That's it. If you link it to the wrong job, we can go to this linked section here, search for that. We've got 3 Master Sergeant Rodney Lavelles with 3 different Exactware IDs. If we mix these up, we can unlink, link it to the right one, link it to the right one. If you need any help with that, you can reach out to me. But yes, ultimately, PCs will be responsible for linking jobs from XA to PSA. Let's get back to that job we were looking at. All right. Next is properly maintain another deliverable. The main outputs of your job is your role is going to be properly maintain TPA portals, PSA notes, and dates. So the notes that need to be maintained can be entered in from here and made public. As we discussed, that pushes to exact analysis. Otherwise, you can put the notes directly into the job in exact analysis by adding a note here, typing in whatever note you need, adding additional emails, and adding the note. This publishes to everybody involved in the job. So there should be some appropriate, business terms being used in there. Shouldn't be typing LOL, putting emotes in there. Um, we're professional, maintain professional attitude when discussing things with TPAs and insurance companies. Uh, this is also the place we go for form uploads. So documents, you can add documents here with the description. As you upload them, it'll give you a description that you can add. You upload it, and then it's viewable by everybody. So you can upload photos, permits, invoices. It's the PC's responsibility to upload all documents during the origination stage. Once it moves to production, you pass all those responsibilities onto the operations manager. But for now, that's your responsibility. Next deliverable, quality completion standards. So these are the kind of the standards that you'll be maintaining. So the project intake needs to have accurate information in PSA. The jobs that you enter need to have our accurate information. You owe that to every other role that comes after. As the person doing intake, you are the only one responsible for capturing accurate information up front. Any issues found later, the wrong phone number, a wrong email address, incorrect location, incorrect homeowner name, whatever the case is, that intake is one of the most important things that a project coordinator does. So it needs to be accurate. The formatting needs to be correct. The data needs to be correct. Um, there's a very strict naming convention and numbering convention that I'm not going to go over in this video. But spacing needs to be correct. Dashes need to be in the right place. Needs to be formatted correctly so that it's identical. So when we go back and audit, we can find things easily because everything is identical in its formatting. We need to avoid service level failures. That's another quality and completion standard for you passing the job on. Service level failures are unacceptable. It means we didn't hit the minimum deadline expected from a contractor. The minimum deadlines are forgiving. So not hitting them means we just didn't pay enough attention. So we need to pay as much attention as possible to the jobs, reach out to our customers, not get fired off of jobs by just ignoring people. For anything that is going to reach a service level failure that is unavoidable during origination, it is the project manager's project coordinator's responsibility to maintain the requests for exceptions. We can request exceptions from TPAs and insurance companies based on unavoidable circumstances. If somebody gets into a car accident and we can't inspect the property, the timer doesn't stop. The timer is built by the system, maintained by the system. It's a computer. It doesn't recognize things that happen to us. So we have to reach out to the TPAs, the insurance companies, and request exceptions when things like that happen. So make sure that you maintain those exception requests and ask. We only get a limited number of them. You don't want to have a high percentage of exceptions to where we're just hunting those 4s and 5s and doing exceptions for everything else. There has to be a real reason as to why we cannot progress. But that is a tool in your back pocket for that. As far as palm scoring, you're trying to maintain realistically a 4. We should always push for a 5 if it's possible. There's a lot of different categories where we can score high. So always push for the 5. But the realistic palm score management that a project coordinator's being measured against is a 4.0. That's what you're pushing for. Those deliverables that you had that we'd mentioned earlier, you have a deadline for them. When we receive an assignment, the deadline is immediate. There is no timer that you're waiting for. You're not, okay, within the next 30 minutes, I need to get this done. You're expected to immediately begin working on the actual scheduling, and scope inclusion on the invite for our estimators. As soon as you receive a client document, that should also be uploaded immediately, and any other forms. They get uploaded as soon as you receive them. There's really no timer. It has to be realistic, so we're not going to expect it in there 30 seconds after you've received it. But if a form is given to you and then referenced by the homeowner, and an hour later the estimator goes to look in the job to find it and it's not in there, you failed. When you get that document, immediately find the job and upload it. Within the deadline for linking jobs is 24 hours. When a job is assigned to us in XA, everybody gets a notification in your email. Everybody's notified that we got a new assignment, and it should come in immediately to this integration. You have 24 hours to get that job linked. So if it comes in at 8 a.m. today, you have until 8 a.m. tomorrow to have that job linked to an existing job in PSA. Whether the job is automatically created and then linked, or if you're made to create the job and then link it, job needs to be made, job needs to be linked. There's no real deadline on this next one, but the TPA portal, the notes, and the dates is just a constant upkeep. You're constantly working to, fight the system to just get this information and then put it in as fast as possible. Because the moment that a date gets entered in, if it's one linked to a workflow, it's going to push it to the next responsibility, push it to the next person. The longer you take to fill in that date, the longer it takes for the next person to be informed that the deadline is now sitting with them. So you are constantly fighting to update all those notes in the portal. Once a week, once every 5 days, you're updating notes in the portal, and then putting in notes or putting in dates into PSA to get that job moving forward. As far as who uses your deliverables, an estimator needs an accurate invitation and a scope and outlook to inspect. I've had wrong addresses, phone numbers, client names, wrong dates and times put on invites. So it happens. We're human, we make mistakes, but do your best to maintain the records as accurately as possible. The client documents needed for specific circumstances need to be added in. So whatever the case is, if you get a document from a client or from the TPA, something that looks important, something that looks useful to the estimator or project manager, whoever comes next, if you get a document from a client, you get a document from the insurance company or a TPA, upload it into PSA, get it in there. Linking jobs for all users, that's really just useful for everybody. As soon as you link a job in XA, anybody who uses that can go into the Exactware tab, click here, and I'm in the job. So as long as I'm on the right account, I'm in the job. That quick. Maintaining records for the TPAs. So make sure that the dates are right for the TPAs. Make sure that as soon as we've got a signed document, it's uploaded to them. The worst thing that we can see is every single job they're asking us to upload the work off. Every single job they're asking us to update the dates. We should be proactive, not reactive. They shouldn't be telling us, they should be thanking us for doing it. Lastly, form uploads for TPAs. I already mentioned that. Okay, so moving on from deliverables, the next one is collaboration. So these are all the people that you maintain contact with throughout the start to finish, your role beginning to end. These are all the people you communicate with. So the owners for core jobs and for escalations, you can communicate to owners. If you're getting on an estimator about producing an estimate and they're giving you lip, giving you pushback, and they don't have a real good reason as to why, escalate it directly to ownership. You should try to maintain it at the lowest level possible. So solve it yourself if you have that relationship. If it's not working, use the owners, use your managers, use everybody that you can, and don't waste your time speaking to somebody who's not going to respond how you need them to maintain your records, because ultimately you're responsible for the records. Core job communications with the ownership. A lot of our referrals go directly to managers, owners, and so you'll receive a message from them. So you're going to communicate with them on core jobs. You'll be maintaining relationships with estimators as well, scheduling them for inspections, doing follow-ups on their estimates. You'll be responding to client comments, whether it's something the insurance company posted a note about in XA, which is the worst way to hear about it, or if they call us directly, and say, hey, this estimator that I met with, he sucks. You know, take that with a grain of salt. Speak to the estimator or speak to whoever the party is that is being commented on with the client. Um, Speak to whoever that is and maintains that communication. Also, revision notes need to be communicated to an estimator and approvals. When it comes to revision notes and approvals, it's really just first come, first serve. Early bird gets the worm. The first person to see that there are revisions needed, and the first person to see that there's an approval on an estimate is the one who acts on it first. If you, as the project coordinator, see that there was a revision that's needed, contact the estimator immediately and let them know. Maybe they already read the note and they're already working on it, but it's good to keep that communication open. For approvals, same thing. Message directly to them. Hey, our job got approved. So they can start movement on that immediately. You can put in the approval date. AR can start working on the contract, and the estimator can start working on the takeoff and getting the work order imported. Again, another person that you're going to be speaking with, AR, I just mentioned. The contract request at approval is going to be something that you send out, and also the invoice amount. When you send the contract request, AR needs a very specific piece of information. Now, we're going to do our best to maintain accurate records in PSA so that the estimate amount on this page here is accurate. But in case it's not, your contract request should include a dollar amount. When you reach out to AR, you should request, hey, this job got approved. You will be producing a contract to them so they can sign it. And then here's the invoice amount. Give them the actual dollar amount so that they don't have to look anywhere else for it. They don't have to go and check to make sure the approved estimate at XA is accurate, matching the amount due in PSA. Just give them the dollar amount. If you don't know it, ask the estimator. If they don't know it, look it up in the estimate. Have them look it up. Providing that invoice amount saves AR a lot of headaches. And it saves us a lot of headaches in case they capture the wrong information. Two estimates uploaded into a job with different amounts. Which one do I use? Give them the information that they will be begging for. Externally, you'll be communicating with clients, handling all comments and concerns, and scheduling for origination, obviously. The TPA and the insurance companies, obviously, you'll be communicating with them, maintaining portal records, putting in exception notes, additional requests, and also subcontractors, rarely, but you will be communicating with them, those external people. The subcontractors you will be coordinating scheduling with if an estimator needs to meet them on site. For some of our jobs, it's impossible to determine a dollar amount or just very difficult to determine a dollar amount without getting a subcontractor involved, a specialist for Venetian plaster, signage, things like that. We get them to quote it to us. We take their bid, add it onto the estimate as estimators. So sometimes we'll be meeting with them on site during origination, and that will be communicated through you. You'll be adding those subcontractors to those invites. Preferred methods and tools for collaboration, PSA is really it. Notes and dates being put in pushes the workflow forward. Auto notifying the next person who's responsible for the next thing. If you're keeping your dates up to date for all of the jobs that you're maintaining in origination, your workload is going to be very light. You're going to put in a date. It's going to tell the estimator, do this next. You're going to put in a date. It's going to tell them, you're scheduled for this. So they can look at the calendar and figure out when they're scheduled for. There's a revision request. They're going to need to be notified about that because there's no automatic notification in PSA. But for the most part, updating your dates as they come through will get you all the information that you need out to the responsible parties. Also, Outlook is an important tool. Email follow-ups for external communication, and obviously Outlook is our calendar app that we use. So you'll be using that to communicate with the estimator and subs and whoever else, including them on the invites, clients as well. WhatsApp is our last communication method that we're going to use to collaborate. We don't really use WhatsApp with clients. If necessary, that's possible, but really WhatsApp is an internal thing. For any urgent updates or escalations, you can message management directly there to get an answer on something that's urgent, or you can communicate directly with an estimator in case they're not responsive in PSA or they're not putting a date in. You can just reach out via WhatsApp. So as far as when to escalate, I would say internal, Owners, senior estimators, and senior PMs, or IT based on the scenario. You could have an issue with your computer. You could have an issue with some of the software that we use. Escalate that to IT, obviously. If you have an issue with an estimator or a PM, um, you communicate with PMs as well sometimes for supplements when it rolls back into the origination and an estimator is doing a supplement. You might communicate with PMs. If you have an issue with a PM or an estimator, you reach out to the senior estimator or senior PM. And if all else fails, reach out to ownership. That is escalation. KPIs. So the things you're measured against, what is going to measure your success? Accuracy of job intake and calendar invites. 5% failure rate. That means you have 95% of your records that should be accurate. Out of 100 jobs, you should be getting 95 of them correct. At a smaller sample size, every 20 jobs, you can get one wrong. That means that the name is spelled correctly. The phone number is entered correctly. There's email addresses in there. If there's a gate code that goes in there, the job number is entered correctly with the exact formatting. The name is entered correctly with the exact formatting. I'm less concerned with the space and more, if there's a space here or not. I'm more concerned with the fact that it's an actual recon job, that it is at that address, that it's a specific type, job type with the specific subtype. That information should be absolutely accurate down to punctuation, and you'll be measured at 95%. Nextly, timely updates and data entry. There's no specific metric. It's really based on the guidelines and our service level agreements. A service level failure is unacceptable. So anything above that is what we're trying to maintain. We're going to hit minimums sometimes. We're going to hit the minimum job timeline requirements sometimes, but service level failure is where failure is noted. We are shooting for a 4.0 POM score. 4.0 meaning that it's all of the POMs are graded on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. 5 is almost impossible to maintain unless you're a roofing only contractor. It requires 1 hour from, or I'm sorry, maybe 15 minutes. I'd have to pull up the exhibit, but very short timeline to communication, 24 hours to inspect, 12 hours to inspect from the receipt of the assignment. So we'd have to have estimators on call. And we'd have to have these homeowners available right as soon as we get the assignment. We'd have to schedule and get out there. We try to do that, but it's not realistic in some circumstances. So we schedule for when the homeowner's available, and we notate along the way. So maintain the POM score as well as you can, but 4.0 is a perfect score for us. Anything above that is even better. Anything below that means that there are things that you need to work on to maintain the records better. Target expectations. These KPIs are measurable 1 month after entry into the role for those who have worked with TPAs previously. So anybody who has experience with TPAs that joins AZ Construction and Renovation, you have 1 month to get up to date on our processes to make sure that you can meet these KPIs. For any project coordinator coming in who has never worked with TPAs, you will have 2 months before you're measured against these KPIs. And that is simply to give you an additional month to learn the TPA guidelines. It's not a fast thing to learn. You're going to make mistakes, so you're given an additional month to learn. That is 60 days to learn the process as project coordinator. One of the simplest roles, in my opinion, but one of the most important, because the accuracy of information is not something that everybody cares about. It's not something that everybody, if there's 2 L's in a name or a street name needs to be spelled correctly, that attention to detail is very important. The actual input, the information you're given, and then what you're expected to produce, not difficult, but very important. Your effect on the company as part of the KPIs, maintaining these records, what does it actually affect? Faster revenue generation when we follow up. More jobs are going to be won in a simple phone call than most other interactions. When we produce these estimates and the homeowner needs time to review them, they're not going to tell us, call me exactly in 2 days and I'll have an answer for you. They're just going to say, give me some time to look over it. And if it falls off of your plate, if you lose track of it, we lost the job. They're not going to reach out to us and say, hey, let me spend my money. They might, sometimes they do, but it's a low percentage. So it is up to you to follow up with these clients to get them to agree, get them to remember that they have this estimate sitting around, remember the reason that they contacted us in the first place, went through the process of getting us to produce an estimate, reviewing that actual estimate, get them to agree to the estimate and see if you can send them if we can get them a contract. Also, margin protection, the accuracy of the information you put in reduces the rework that we have to do. The time that we have to go in, double checking records for phone number accuracy, checking for a proper email, going into XA, it's time lost, and it's overhead. We're spending overhead every second that we spend, communicating with our peers. We're spending that time that we're just passively generating by completing these jobs. So let's not eat up that time. Accuracy of information protects the margin. Operational efficiency, less wasted man hours. Again, just accuracy of information means that we're wasting less time. And reputation and growth. The more that we are accurate and timely in our handling of these jobs and origination, which is your only responsibility. Once it moves to production, that's the operations manager's responsibility. It's no longer yours. You want to make sure that you're doing everything possible to protect our reputation and increase our growth, which just means you're reaching out to clients. You're providing accurate information internally, and you're being timely in your follow-ups externally. That is the bread and butter of being a project coordinator. The last section that we're going to go into, we're almost done here, is the help section. Show job aids, where to find help, internal contacts for help, things like this. There's a document that's going to be posted that's going to have kind of a very simplistic layout of the project coordinator role, something that can be referenced easily. So this document that I'm kind of referencing for my own, for this training, that'll be released to the entire company. PSA Academy is also really good for system use. That is not something that I've made. PSA Academy is something that PSA has created to teach users how to click around in their system. At a baseline, go through the mandatory training first before you start trying to learn how to use the system. For us specifically, you got to learn how to crawl before you can walk. So get into PSA Academy for that system use function. The POMS exhibit is also a good training material to learn how the TPAs measure our success, our work. And lastly, in this section, the subject matter expert. Ownership is going to dictate the KPIs and the formatting of how the jobs come in. So if you're curious about how it needs to look, if you're told repeatedly that something doesn't look right, it's not being entered correctly, the subject matter expert for that is going to be ownership. They're the ones who dictate the records. If there's another project coordinator you can communicate with, obviously they're a really good resource. And me as well, Thomas Eber, you can communicate with me. But the subject matter experts are going to be ownership for how they want to see those projects coming into PSA. Where to find help, the document, again, PSA has a help library, and there's also a proven learning series separate from the PSA Academy on YouTube. So proven learning series available on YouTube. Also, the support at canamsys.com is the support email that's useful. You can reach out to their support team in case you're having any kind of issues that you feel like are system wide and not necessarily something with our system. Internal contacts for help regarding the project coordinator position is going to be Steve at estimates@azconstruct.com, Adrian at azconstruct.com, and me, Thomas, at azconstruct.com. That's it. Thank you for watching.